Two women, same company, same job title, same salary for 34 years. They carpooled together. They complained about the same boss together. They both turned 67 on the same side of the calendar. And on the last Friday of March, one of them walked out of that office with a cake, a card signed by everyone in the department, and a one-way ticket to Lisbon, Portugal. She had already booked the apartment. She had already mapped out the cafes. She was done working forever, and she knew it. The other woman is still sitting at that desk right now. She told herself she'd retire at 65. Then 67, now she's not sure she can retire at all. Same career, same paychecks, same number of Mondays, completely different financial lives. And the difference between them was not luck, it was not inheritance. It was not even income, it was 8 specific decisions. 8 places where the math quietly turned against one of them while she wasn't watching. And by the time she looked up, the compound clock had already run out of time. That is what this video is about, not the emotional story of retirement, the mechanical story, the mathematical story, because things rarely work out, but math usually does. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now. My name is David Marshall, and this channel exists for one reason only, to show you the real math behind money before the real math shows you first. Let's go. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement savings for Americans approaching retirement age is $185,000. Not the average, the median. The middle of the country, half of Americans have more than that, half have less. And $185,000 sounds like a real number until you do one piece of math. Using the 4% withdrawal rule, which is the standard benchmark for how much you can safely pull from a portfolio each year without running out of money, $185,000 produces $7,400 per year. That is $617 per month. That is not a retirement. That is a supplement to whatever else you can scrape together. That is the financial floor for tens of millions of Americans who spent decades working, and $617 per month is what they built. And here's the question I want to hold in your mind for the entire video. How does that happen? How do two people who work the same job for the same number of years end up in completely different financial universes at 67? Because the answer is not one big catastrophic mistake. It is 8 small, slow, quiet failures. And every single one of them has a name. Let me introduce you to those 8 reasons right now. And I promise you, by the time we get to reason 8, you are going to understand your own financial life in a way you have not before. Reason number 1, the savings rate problem. The average American saves 3.6% of their income for retirement. That number comes from the personal savings rate data, and it is devastating when you hold it next to what retirement actually requires. Most credible financial frameworks, from Fidelity to Vanguard to independent researchers, suggest that a savings rate of 15 to 20% of gross income is what it takes to fund a dignified retirement over a 30 to 40-year career. 3.6% versus 15 to 20%. That is not a small gap. That is the gap between the woman on the plane to Lisbon and the woman still sitting at the desk. Now, most people, when they hear this, immediately go to income. I can't save 15%, I don't make enough. And I understand why that feels true, but here's what the data actually shows. The savings rate problem in America is not primarily an income problem. It is a behavioral problem. Studies consistently show that lifestyle inflation, meaning people spend more as they earn more rather than saving more, is the dominant force behind low savings rates across nearly every income bracket. The math doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you meant to increase your contributions when you got the raise. It only counts what actually went into the account, and for most Americans, that number is 3.6 cents of every dollar. The woman who went to Lisbon, she was saving 18% from her late 20s forward, not because she had more money, because she made a different decision about where her next raise would go before she ever got it. Reason number 2, the 10-year delay and the compound clock. This is the one that physically hurts to calculate. So I want you to stay with me on the numbers here because this is going to matter. If you start investing $500 per month at age 25, and you earn a historical average annual return of roughly 10% in a broad index fund like a total market fund, by age 65 you have approximately $3.2 million. If you start at age 35, same $500 per month, same 10% return, by age 65 you have approximately $1.13 million. The 10-year delay costs you over $2 million from the exact same monthly contribution. No difference in what you put in each month, just a 10-year difference in when you started. That missing $2 million is not something you can make up by working harder or investing more aggressively later. You cannot recover the most powerful compounding years once they are gone. They are gone permanently. The compound clock does not rewind. Most people who delay starting do so because they're waiting for the right moment. They're paying off student loans, they're getting settled, they're waiting until they understand it better, and those are all understandable reasons. But the math doesn't care about your reasons. The math only cares about the date you started. Every year you wait to start has an actual dollar cost attached to it. And for a 10-year delay, that cost is somewhere in the range of $870,000 to over $2 million depending on your contribution amount. You are not just delaying saving. You are spending the most valuable compounding years you will ever have, silently, without a receipt. Starting late is losing the most powerful compounding years, and you cannot get them back. Reason number 3, interrupting compounding. This one is less about starting late and more about stopping early. And it shows up in a behavior that affects millions of Americans every single time they change jobs. Cashing out a 401k. When you leave a job and you have a 401k balance, you have options. You can roll it over into an IRA or a new employer's plan. Or you can cash it out, pay income taxes on the full amount, pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty if you're under 59.5, and take the remaining check home. And tens of millions of Americans choose to cash it out. Not because they're reckless, because the money is right there, because the balance feels small enough that it doesn't seem to matter, because there's a car payment coming up, because the balance was only $8,000 and cashing it out doesn't feel like a catastrophic decision in that moment. But here is what that $8,000 cash out actually costs you. If that $8,000 had stayed invested from age 30 to age 65, it would have grown to approximately $225,000 at a 10% annual return. You didn't just spend $8,000. You spent $225,000. You just made that trade without realizing you were making it. This is what behavioral finance calls interrupting compounding. In every single interruption, every cash out, every loan against the 401k to supplement a lifestyle, every early withdrawal for a vacation or a renovation, or just because things got tight, breaks the chain. And compound growth requires an unbroken chain to do what the charts promise it will do. The people in the top 10% of retirement outcomes are not geniuses. They are people who never broke the chain. They rolled over every balance. They never borrowed from the account. They treated the 401k like it was sealed. And that behavioral decision, not their intelligence, not their income, is the primary explanation for why their outcomes look so different. Reason number 4, healthcare and long-term care, which is a separate catastrophe. I need to be very clear about this one because most retirement planning conversations roll healthcare into the general expense bucket. That is a mistake. Healthcare is not a retirement expense. Healthcare is a separate financial catastrophe that happens to arrive at the same time as retirement. And it needs to be planned for with the same seriousness as your entire retirement portfolio. Fidelity's most recent estimate for the average retired couple's healthcare costs in retirement is approximately $330,000. That number covers Medicare premiums, out-of-pocket costs, dental, vision, and prescription drugs. It does not cover long-term care. Long-term care, meaning nursing home care, assisted living, or in-home care, is entirely separate. The average cost of a private room in a nursing home in the United States is currently over $100,000 per year. The average nursing home stay is around 2.5 years. If both members of a couple need significant long-term care, which is statistically likely given that roughly 70% of people over 65 will need some form of long-term care in their lifetime, you are looking at a healthcare-adjacent expense that could exceed $500,000 above and beyond your living expenses. Medicare does not cover long-term care. Medicaid covers it only after you have spent down almost all of your assets. This is the thing that wipes out retirement savings for millions of families who did everything else reasonably well. They saved, they invested, they got to 65 with what felt like enough, and then a health crisis arrived, and within 24 months the savings were gone. Planning for health care as an afterthought is one of the most expensive mistakes in all of personal finance. The math doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares whether you set the money aside. Reason number 5, the Social Security timing decision. This one is worth approximately $1,000 per month for the rest of your life, and most Americans make it without fully understanding what they're deciding. You can claim Social Security as early as age 62. If you wait until your full retirement age, which for most people today is 67, your monthly benefit is significantly higher. And if you wait until age 70, your benefit is even higher still. The difference between claiming at 62 versus waiting until 70 is typically between $800 and $1,200 per month, every month. For the rest of your life. That sounds simple, but here's the behavioral reality. Most Americans claim Social Security as early as possible. The most common claiming age is 62. People claim early because they need the money, because they are afraid Social Security won't exist, because they don't trust the math, because a dollar in hand right now feels more real than a larger dollar 8 years from now. And for people who genuinely need the income at 62, early claiming may be the right choice. But for people who are healthy and have other assets to draw from in their early 60s, early claiming is one of the most expensive decisions they make. There is no COLA, no cost of living adjustment, that repairs the permanently reduced base benefit you locked in at 62. The woman in Lisbon. She waited until 70. She used her portfolio to bridge the gap. She will receive a larger check every month for the rest of her life because she was patient for 8 years. Her counterpart still at the desk, she claimed at 62 because she needed it. And every month for the rest of her life, her check is smaller because of that decision. Reason number 6, debt and retirement. Here is a scenario that is becoming more common than it should be. A 67-year-old retiree with a mortgage, a car payment, and a credit card balance. They are paying interest in retirement. They are paying the bank with money that should be funding their life. Carrying debt into retirement is the single fastest way to destroy a retirement portfolio. When your fixed income, whether from Social Security, a pension, or portfolio withdrawals, is partially consumed by debt payments, you are forced to withdraw more from your portfolio than you planned. And withdrawing more than your 4% sustainable rate early in retirement significantly increases the probability that your money runs out before you do. The people who retire with zero consumer debt are not people who had more income. They are people who treated debt elimination with the same urgency as investment accumulation. Both matter, both affect the outcome. Carrying a $350 car payment and a $450 minimum credit card payment into retirement means you need $800 per month more from your portfolio just to stay even. On a $185,000 median portfolio, that is unsustainable within a few years. Debt in retirement is not a personal failure. It is a systemic planning gap, and it shows up in the final numbers with brutal mathematical precision. Reason number 7, inflation, the slow invisible tax. Prices double every 24 years at 3% average inflation. That is not a prediction. That is arithmetic based on historical data. If you retire at 65 and live to 89, prices will have roughly doubled by the end of your retirement. The groceries that cost $400 per month when you retired will cost $800 per month when you're 89. The utility bill that was $200 will be $400. Your fixed income sources, if they don't include robust COLA adjustments, will buy you half of what they bought you when you started. This is the purchasing power problem, and it is invisible in the early years of retirement because inflation moves slowly enough that people adjust without noticing. The problem becomes visible 10 or 15 years in, when the gap between income and expenses has quietly widened into a chasm. Social Security does include a cost of living adjustment each year, though it has historically lagged true experienced inflation for seniors, who spend a larger portion of income on healthcare and housing, both of which inflate faster than the general consumer price index. A fixed pension with no COLA is particularly vulnerable, and any strategy that assumes today's dollar will buy tomorrow's groceries is a strategy built on a mathematical misunderstanding. The solution is building inflation-resistant assets into the retirement plan from the beginning. A portfolio of equity index funds like those tracking total market indexes has historically outpaced inflation over long periods. A retirement portfolio concentrated entirely in fixed income, bonds, CDs, and savings accounts loses purchasing power slowly but reliably over a 20 to 30-year retirement. The math doesn't care about your intentions. Inflation compounds just like your investments compound. The question is simply which one is compounding faster. Reason number 8, no actual number. This is the final reason, and in some ways it is the root cause of all the others. Because if you do not have a specific target number for your retirement, every other decision exists in a vacuum. Most Americans, if you ask them how much they need to retire, will give you an answer that sounds like a feeling rather than a calculation. I don't know, maybe 1 million, or enough to not worry. Or I'm not sure, I'll figure it out later. Later is not a financial plan. Later is where the woman at the desk lives. Here is the actual framework. Take your expected annual expenses in retirement and multiply by 25. That is your target number based on the 4% withdrawal rule. If you expect to spend $60,000 per year in retirement, your target number is $1.5 million. If you expect to spend $80,000 per year, your target is $2 million. This is not a guarantee, but it is a real number, a number you can aim at. A number you can reverse engineer into monthly contributions. A number that turns retirement from a vague aspiration into an engineering problem. The MIT Living Wage Calculator can help you estimate realistic retirement expenses based on your location. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances shows you where you stand relative to your peers. But none of that matters if you never sit down and calculate your actual target number. You cannot aim at a target you cannot see. And the people who retire comfortably are almost uniformly people who knew their number, worked backward from it, and automated their progress toward it. Not because they were more disciplined, because they engineered a system where discipline wasn't required. That phrase matters, behavioral, not income-based. The solution to the retirement crisis is not earning more. It is engineering your financial life so that the right things happen automatically, without relying on your willpower in any given month. Automated contributions that increase every year by 1%. Every raise redirected to savings before it touches your checking account. A 401k contribution rate set at the maximum your employer matches at minimum. A Roth IRA with an automatic monthly transfer that happens on the first of every month whether you think about it or not. A portfolio of low-cost index funds that you never touch, never cash out, and never borrow against. This is what the top 10% actually do, not stock picking, not crypto timing, not secret knowledge, automation, and patience. The invisible discipline is not willpower, it is system design. You build the system once and the system runs. The compound clock ticks. And 30 years later, someone is walking out of an office with a one-way ticket to Lisbon. The math doesn't care about your intentions, but it also doesn't discriminate. If you give it the right inputs, it produces the right outputs, every time, without exception. The compound clock is running right now for you, whether you're using it or not. Before I wrap up, let me give you the 3 things to do this week. Not this year, this week. First, calculate your target number. Take what you expect to spend per year in retirement and multiply by 25. Write it down, make it real. Second, find your current savings rate. Take what you contributed to retirement accounts last year, divide it by your gross income, multiply by 100. If that number is below 15, you have a gap. Now you know. Third, check every job you have ever left and make sure you rolled over every 401k. Every one. If there is a forgotten balance sitting somewhere from a job you left 8 years ago, find it, roll it over, let it compound. Those 3 steps will not fix everything, but they will tell you exactly where you stand, and knowing where you stand is the beginning of everything. Here is what I want to leave you with, and this is the oxygen philosophy that I come back to on this channel again and again. You cannot help anyone else with money until you understand your own. Not your kids, not your parents, not your partner. You cannot give sound advice that you haven't first stress tested against real math. You cannot feel secure if your security is built on what your uncle told you or what your employer's default contribution rate was set to. The woman who went to Lisbon is not smarter than the woman still at the desk. She just understood her own oxygen supply earlier. She secured her mask before the pressure dropped. She ran the math when the math was still in her favor. The compound clock is still running. For most of you watching this, it is still possible to change the trajectory. But the math does not get more forgiving with time, it gets less forgiving. Every year you wait costs more than the year before. If this video made you think about your own number, your own savings rate, your own timeline, share it with someone who needs to see it before they run out of time to use it. Subscribe to this channel right now if you want more of this, because we are going to keep doing this. We are going to keep taking the real math and holding it up until it cannot be ignored, and there is a lot more of it coming. See you in the next one.